All right, everyone. So we are here with War 11 against the Brotherhood. Today I will be bringing Human Torch, Mr. Negative, and Black Widow Clairvoyant. I will have Path 8 in Section 1 and Path 8 in Section 2. I will have a middle mini-boss, and I am on boss duty along with 2 mini-bosses on Boss Island. So Path 8 here, this Hyperion, not a big deal. I'm going to take it with Claire. What I've decided with this fight is that I'm going to use a Power Start 1 to quickly get to SP2. I'm going to stay in Plagued, which is Poison, so that I can Power Drain with my SP2, but also so that I can have an easy power gain from his Poison immunity. I am going to pop a SP3 Special Defense boost, 33%, just to make sure that I don't take as much damage as I should if I get hit with an SP3. But what you're going to see from this fight is even with return policy, which is where you nullify a debuff and nullify a buff and he gains power for each. Her buff immunity prevents buffs, so it'll prevent that power gain from happening. So there we are, missing a parry at the start. Not a big deal, we didn't take a hit, so we're in Plagued. Now we're going to do some mediums so that we can build some power, and now that we're at SP2, real quick drop. I do have Mystic boosts on, it's just so that we can constantly cycle SP2s, but what you're going to see here is because of my Mystic Dispersion, well, actually it's from the combo hits and the buff immunity that I'm going to gain too much power and have to throw an SP3. It is not a big deal, as I've built a lot of charges, and this is going to do enough to actually knock him out. So, pretty easy fight to start. The second node is also a Claire, and instead of taking this with Human Torch, I decided to take it with Mr. Negative, and it's just because of his duped ability. What you're going to see me do is gain a buff and then attack her with that buff active, and it's just so that the immunity kicks in and it does 3,000 damage. It's like 2,900. So every time I hit her and she's not at 20 charges, it's going to be some bonus damage while I'm holding on to a buff. So it actually goes really quick. You're going to see that stutter. It's because I tried to heavy and apparently I didn't have my thumb down for that, but I'm still building to plus 10 plus dark energy before throwing SP2. We're getting some bonus damage from his SIG ability, but she's just gonna go down nice and easy. Figured as long as this fight doesn't have him phased, we're good to go. So, easy peasy. Next up is the Power Snack Mini. Now, we had a different champion here than normal, Mysterio, and we figured because Mr. Negative doesn't have anything that basically makes Mysterio complicated, like an evade or a miss tactic. I mean, he does have a miss, but you have to push him to SP2. That Mr. Negative was just a good all-around counter to the node. The game plan here is the same as when I took Man-Thing, Doom, or Maw. It's to build light energy through parry heavy, convert when he's just shy of a bar of power with the heavy evade counter, convert the fury buffs that we've converted to light, bait out his SP1 when he has it, and now that he has it, and you're going to see me dash back in so that I can work on spacing and make sure I don't get cornered, just parry. And the parry is going to wait out his damage reflect, but also allow us to build light energy. So we're at 15 dark. We don't even have to convert these last two. We're going to throw this, and now he's just going to melt. He's going to hit backup recovery. It's going to make him lose this bar of power that he has, just enough so that he doesn't throw SP1. He does get above it from the combo, which is fine. He's almost dead. And here we're just waiting out the damage reflect windows so that we can just finish him with some evade counters or just some combos. So it ended up being a pretty easy fight. So it's just a showcase of how strong a counter Mr. Negative is here against the Power Snack Mini. Now this is where the war gets interesting. I took these fights a lot later. I was 6-hour boosted, so we're at the back end of these 6-hour boosts. Man-Thing shouldn't be an issue this should be a pretty normal Man-Thing versus Mr. Negative fight. But as you're going to see, I actually miss a block or parry. So I end up taking extra damage than I should, which just results in some item use later on. But normal game plan, build light energy, convert to dark as we build to SP2. Make sure that we have greater than 10 dark energy when we drop SP2. There's the miss block. Now we're going to block and bait attacks so that we can get that. Now I was aware that the unstoppable was going to prevent him from being knocked back, so I didn't get hit again. And we dropped an SP2 with enough dark charges. So 12 dark charges and 13 degen. He's got the double petrify, so his healing's getting reversed. Any willpower that's going on is getting reversed. And unfortunately, we can't make back any of the damage we took with that weakness debuff and willpower because of the heal block on path 8. So now it's just combo him to finish him. And I think I use an evade counter after he uses this SP1. Yep, and there it is. For an easy opening without blocking, down he goes. So took some extra hits just so that we can use some items later before we take on a boss. Venom here. Now, what I realized during this Venom fight is that my Mystic Dispersion is too high for this fight, and you're going to see why. Actually, on review, it was more so the timing of Divine Intervention and trying to bait out an SP1 instead of pushing him to SP2 that the dexterity buff I had caused me to gain SP3 instead of SP2. And what you ideally want here is to get to SP2 and keep firing SP2s so that you keep buff immunity up so that he doesn't gain power from the rich get richer, which is on the node. And that just did not work out here. So we got pushed to SP2 pretty quickly. We managed to drop ours after he throws his, so we're in a good spot. And coming up is where the mistake happened. Originally, I stayed in blood so that I could avoid any accidental hits and taking on bleeds, and then I realized that wasn't enough damage, so I changed to Hellfire. And as you can see here, I had a dexterity buff, and he had buff immunity, so I ended up gaining power and being pushed to SP3, which isn't good because now I can't place buff immunity. So now we gotta throw out this SP3 after he threw his SP2 so that we can get back into the cycle of SP2s, which is fine. Our health pretty high. He's at half. You're gonna see here, I just miss a block. God knows why. Baiting out this SP2. Thank God he threw it because I don't have any buffs and he did, so he was going to gain power. Now we're at SP2. Now we're just dropping SP2 after SP2. He's surprisingly getting to SP2 a lot faster than I expected him to. But now he's down. So lost control of the fight kind of, but managed to bounce back. All right, so first mini boss on Boss Island is Annihilus on Rage. I'm going to take it with Claire. Game plan here is that I'm going to use an advanced power boost, and we have a bunch in overflow, so it's not really wasting it. It's using it so that it doesn't expire. We do have a white Magneto pre-fight, and what that helps us do is parry pretty reliably. So instead of him not getting stunned from a parry, and placing his stifle and basically doing his obliterating strike, he's going to guarantee stun. And he may still place those debuffs, but we're not going to dash back to create openings, so he's not going to gain unstoppable. I am max boosted. I didn't remove attack masteries here, mainly because if he triggers Fury from my special attack, that's fine. Buff immunity is going to be up, and all that's going to do if I trigger Fury during an SP2 is give me more power. So technically it's ideal because then we can cycle SP2s a lot faster. It would not be ideal if it pushes us to SP3, which doesn't really happen here. You'll see there are times that there's a very tight window of his rod being nullified and then the Furies being nullified that it causes me to gain too much power too quickly. So I'm actually in mid combo throwing SB2, or even like that, intercepting it with SB2. So pretty chill fight so far. We did get hit. His SP1 can sometimes be a little bit tricky to dodge entirely. But as long as you have a lot of space and he's willing to throw it, you can avoid it and retaliate most of the time. But so far, so good. Going pretty smooth. We haven't lost a lot of health. We're not using Claire later, so even if we did, it's not a big deal. He's very close to done. And this should be the last SB2. So, pretty easy, pretty quick fight. Moving on to this white Magneto on Hurt Locker. Here is the reason I brought Human Torch. Technically, it could have used Human Torch for the Clairvoyant in Section 1. But here we're going to use the pre-fight. What is nice about this node is because White Magneto's SP1 is technically a projectile, it is not unblockable. So even though this is SP1 unblockable, you can block this SP1, which makes it even that much easier. So all you're gonna see is the parry, medium light, medium, rinse and repeat. I don't even care if I push him to SB1. I'm gonna try as hard as possible to push him to SB2 if we can get him there, but it's not gonna happen. I actually think it might happen once, but only because I used an SB2 to stun him. Nope, he's gonna be far shy of that SB2. And then he's gonna die from this power sting. Boom. So easy peasy. All right, so two pretty smooth mini bosses, at least compared to our Section 2 fights on Path 8. So this Mojo boss, I've soloed 2 this season. This is going to be the 3rd Mojo boss fight. Now, what I need to say before this fight starts is that I have contingencies technically in play where I play pretty safe and I block specials that don't need to be dexed because the block damage is fine and I'd rather not mess up the dodge and then eat a bunch of damage and die as a result. However, when my health gets super low, there's a chance I need to change that game plan and go into dexing everything or dodging everything to the best that I can. So I know how to dodge Mojo's SB2, but I don't normally do it if I have a bunch of health. This is going to be a fight where you actually see me dodge because I have to clutch the fight. So here it's going great. We've built up light energy. We're going to convert it with SB1 while we have 8 light energy. So we have 8 dark. So we're in a good range. Now we just want to build back up to SB2. What you should be noticing here is that Mojo's prompts are working out for him. He's gaining a bunch of prompts that are easy to achieve. So he's building up to the 5 prompt. Now I have the Bulwark passive buff. So if he throws anything into my block like an SB2, should reduce the damage a lot. But what you're seeing here is me trying to bait SB2, and he had the special attack prompt. So that pushed him into the Fury, which made this degen a lot higher, and I didn't have any debuffs on. So took some damage there. Whatever, we can make it up. It's a one thing. I couldn't convert that hater buff, and now we're taking another SB2, but without the Bulwark, so I had to dodge some of it. I could convert that hater buff, but that was one thing I didn't realize, that I'd have to dodge part of SB2 to actually convert it. So now we built too much light. We had to throw an SB1. We ate a hater buff, but there were a lot of debuffs on him, so that hater buff didn't do as much degen as it did the first time. Those dark energies just going to fall off, so now we got to build back to just shy of 10, try and use another SP1. But you're seeing me hit into his block a lot just so we can push him to his wall instead of fighting on mine. Prompts are down, or they went down to 2 because he was at 7, so he lost 5 when 1 failed. We can avoid this one, so this one should knock him back down to 1. Now we're at 7 dark energy. Spacing, whatever, for this SP1 got caught in the middle of it. Kind of frustrating, but whatever. We're building to an SP2 so we can drop these degen that are now at 8 with dark energy, so that's good. I mean, my health is lower than his. Things are going a little south. I got to get to this SP2. However, my Bulwark passive is starting to fall, so hopefully we don't have to block another SP2, or hopefully he doesn't get to it. There's our SP2. So now we're going to do quite a bit of damage, but he's at SP2, so here's that dodge. We dodged it. Luckily, anti-life wasn't up. Even if it was, the damage would have been reduced enough for me to actually heal from a degen there from that dexterity buff. And now what you're seeing is his health is so low, I know I'm not going to build up to another SP2. So I'm just firing SP1s to just deal the damage. And I'm pushing him back so that he stays on his wall so that I don't get cornered. We got lucky that he decks that late heavy. And then we're throwing some intercepts here and there. So that SP2 dex saved us, blocking that because we have the Bulwark, and boom, down he goes. So we saved it, we clutched it. Kind of tight, and it made it tight because of those early prompts that just worked in his favor, but we made it work so that we could get the solo. RBG actually ended up dying 0 times compared to their 2, and we actually, as an alliance, ended up beating the Brotherhood 4-3. So it was a good war. We needed to win it. It keeps us in the 4th place position. There's not really a scenario that's going to put us in top 3 as far as win-loss goes. So we're just hopeful that we can maintain the 4th place position and then see what happens after that. So super clutch war. Really happy I got that boss solo. Thanks for stopping by. Keep your eyes out for the next one.